It's the Dev Friday Show with Mark and Tim.
And this time, I actually changed the title. So if you're watching it live, you will see a title which unfortunately didn't update on one of my computers, but I hope it updated on the stream. Because you know what, with that Friday, Mark? You never know what you'll learn.
Oh, that's
you never
true.
know what you'll learn on Dev Friday.
I learned something new every Friday with you, Tim.
Yeah, and that
Every
is
Friday.
the type of content that we produce every week here at the Dev Friday Show and on the Dev Friday stream and at devfridayshow.com, if I got that right. Did I get that right? Is that where it is?
Yep. And are you doing some mood lighting today? I seen you in your on your video there. If you're watching the stream on Twitter or YouTube,
should watch the stream.
Oh,
No one should
everybody
watch the stream.
Everybody should
better
be
in the
watching the
podcast.
stream and then listening to the podcast a week later, just to kind of get a good refresh of the Mark and Tim show.
We talked about it last week. How terrible my lighting is. Not terrible my lighting. I shouldn't say that. How dependent my lighting is
Of
on
the outside.
outside, right?
Yeah.
And if you're in
Okay.
eastern Pennsylvania area today, you will know it's kind of raining outside, so we got some
Not
different
nice.
light. It's not the normal bright light that you see. It's definitely a little bit more subdued due to the cloud cover. So, well,
I know.
that was a good show.
I know.
All out
It
of
was.
first set of content, 1 minute in. Now, I should, like, I put a doc together. Wow, what is this? This is the 20, you know, this is the
You're making a
20
list. You're doing some prep, some show prep for
No,
every-
that's what I'm
our
saying. Like,
Friday
this
show?
is the 28th episode. I think after the second episode, I put a doc together, like, hey, we could talk about some of these things, and then never looked at it again. So
I was maintaining a
I
list.
have no, but you'll be happy about this. I just finished my lunch.
Oh, so you're not going to be eating during the show. I do appreciate that.
Don't have to eat during the show. Don't have to. This is why I'll never be on TV, because I'll be like,
I enjoy that you're prioritizing our show over lunch now, or like, you know, or
Yeah.
at least, or I guess it's like prioritizing lunch before the show to add more importance to the show, so you're not eating while doing it. and
eating
trying to
while doing it. Well,
multitask.
this just reminds me of a story that I saw. I'm assuming it's true because everything on the internet is true, right? And this goes to your recent tweets about our society's infatuation with celebrities, right? I heard that Robert Downey Jr. on the Marvel set would hide snacks in different places, and then just during shooting, just grab it and start eating, which is why the Iron Man character throughout much of the movie is just eating things. It's because it wasn't part of the movie. He just would squirrel away something in a different part of the set, and then just start eating it during shooting.
Yeah,
So that's the vibe that I bring to this show. Pretty sure
I get it.
Don't want to align myself with Robert Downey Jr., but okay, you know
he's
I mean,
Iron Man. What do you not like about Iron Man?
No, Iron Man is now. I do not have the
Or the Tony Stark.
collection-
You're not a big Tony Stark fan.
the collection of figures that are behind you. So
I do not have an
my-
Iron Man figure, so
but
I
don't
do
you?
like him.
My
I do not.
comic book understanding is rudimentary. But am I correct? And I'm sure there's people out there that will yell at me for this. Maybe you will. I don't know. But to me, in the DC universe, you have superheroes, and then you have the superhero that I think I like the best, which is the one who has no superpower,
Okay,
which is Batman.
like Batman, yeah.
Right. Batman he doesn't have a superpower. He just has gadgets and money and the persona that he's created, but no, there's nothing super about Batman. Iron Man to me seems to be the Marvel counterpart of that, which I know you have the arc reactor that's kind of in him and keeping him alive or something. I don't know how true the movies are to the comic book history, but he is just a normal person, right? Is it him and Batman that are the only like superheroes? Because that part I do like. I like that part of, either whether it's Batman or Iron Man. I like that
you
style.
could not a lot of people are a fan of the Punisher, but I am.
Okay, is he not super?
No, he doesn't have any superpowers. He got very upset because his wife and family were killed, and then he just rampages.
Right. Okay. I mean, that's not an uncommon superhero plot, but he has no extra powers. He wasn't also bit by a spider or drank some weird potion.
There's always a few. There's always a few of them that they throw. But you're right, like Batman, Tony Stark, or Iron Man. Interesting. Like their personalities couldn't be any different. the different personalities, like Tony Stark and
Tony Stark to Batman,
Bruce Wayne. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the personality, but where they come from rich families.
Right.
They're smart. They're inventors.
Right.
Batman's more of the detective investigator, which Tony Stark is, but he likes to do it through, building tools to do that, like with like an AI
But Batman
some
figures things out. So he's definitely got that detective side of things, right?
And Tony Stark's a little bit more of, I think he's a little bit, he's more out there too. Even though Bruce Wayne at times has had some public moments, he's more of an introvert in a sense where, Bruce Wayne is more of his alter ego in a sense of wanting to be like an introvert, just kind of be behind the scenes, and then Batman's his more extroverted side where he's out in the dark and trying to
right. Because
crime and help people.
Bruce Wayne is more like the reclusive now tycoon that no one knows. He's kind of, you're not quite sure, but that's the opposite of Tony Stark. Everybody knows who Tony Stark is.
But but there are a lot of similarities from from the financial, from the family, from how they like to surround themselves with technology. Yeah, that's definitely a part of it. But the worlds in DC and in Marvel, there are always a few characters who don't have superpowers, but then that is kind of a thing with you. If you have like a supervillain or superhero, they're gonna have to have some type of something special about them.
I mean, it's kind of in the word.
It's kind of a thing.
Yeah. Well, so I don't even know.
So I don't even know how do we even talk about Iron Man?
I'm gonna have to rewind this one.
I don't even know. It's like
figure out how we got to here. So I just on things that are not connected to anything. How's your esports team going? We haven't talked about that for a couple weeks.
Well, yes, the semester ended, the season ended. We got to the quarterfinals. We faced a team that was Virginia. It was Virginia Tech. It was Virginia. It was a community college in Northern Virginia. It's like Northern Virginia Community College. They've won the tournament twice before, so they're the previous champions. And they were pretty good. We were down one of our best players because he had a scheduling conflict with the theater program, because he's also part of the theater program. And I know they're doing a show.
I think the priorities here.
I think he's on stage management, so he has some responsibilities. So there's scheduling conflict because the scheduling with the tournaments games was a little bit different from our weekly schedule, the way we played. So he couldn't make that adjustment, so we're one man down we have two really, really good guys, 2 to 3, and he was one of those two, and without him our team was definitely hurting a little bit. But then even with him, the team that we played, they were just,
this was the former champs.
Yeah, they were in a different league. They were just better prepared. I think they just had better, they were better prepped. I think all of them were more in sync than our team was.
What does that mean? What, like in esports, what does that mean? I can kind of understand. All right, you go against a team in
when you're playing in, let's say, a 3 versus 3 or 5 versus 5, and you're playing with other teammates, a lot of it's partly communication, being able to communicate. And our team does a pretty good job communicating what's going on, where they're seeing other players on the map and what's happening. But also what you can do when you're not, or knowing your teammates, what they're doing when you're not communicating, I think is a real big thing. Like knowing where they're going to go on the map when they get to that point, what they're going to do, how they're going to interact. When they, let's say, approach, when they are starting let's say a conflict, or they're starting to fire on the other team, they'll know how to respond. So I think just knowing your other teammates and knowing what to expect, I think is such a huge key thing, which our team is still new. They just started playing last semester and then started playing seriously this semester. So I could tell, like during the match, they were, just getting frustrated and just like, just not being able to play in sync as they normally do, probably against like an easier team. But then when they're challenged, they're kind of faced an opponent that definitely plays better as a team and probably has more experience. I think that definitely is a challenge. So, but it was good. They got to the quarterfinals. So I think there's about 60 teams, mixture of community colleges and also smaller 4-year schools that are in the NJCAA esports conference. And out of 60 teams, the top 6 or 8, I think is pretty good.
That's not bad,
for a first season. So
what you're saying it too is, as more of your students, like not the seniors, but as the team plays together over multiple seasons, hopefully that communication, that ability to play together is going to get better
so
and better, right?
it'll be interesting. If I am back at doing the coaching thing
Is this
again in the
news?
fall.
Is this
No,
news?
no, it's not. No, that's my plan. I am
Breaking
planning on
news?
doing that. I am planning,
Okay.
but I always like to keep my options open, like we say.
Right.
But we have all of the team coming back. I am going to be looking to. I was talking to.
Oh, so no seniors? No seniors on the team this year?
There is one, but he needs one more semester. He has to finish up. So fortunately, he has one more semester. He's like one of our best players. And he's going to, if he stays local too, he's all about also staying on as a coach, like a coach or assistant coach, and be able to help out the teams. I think that would be actually be super, super valuable.
Nice.
So, but at least having it in the fall, the team's going to come back. And hopefully too, we can, the college is going back on campus full time, starting the fall. So hopefully we can get more interest back into the esports club and back in the teams. I'd also like to have basically like a JV team too, like a B team. So to be able to have players to kind of be nice for the practices, so we can have like a good like A and a B team, so we can kind of play each other, and then also try to bring up the other players kind of up to us, bring them up, bring their levels up, so that when they need to then start to be on the A team in a semester, once we the students start graduating, we'll have a better pipeline for that. So
yeah. Well, I mean, that's how traditional sports works, right? So
yeah, makes
a lot of sense.
But we'll see. But I am, I do kind of have to take a break, with the competitive games, because you get, it's a whole world too. If you really want to be competitive, and also you really want to be knowledgeable in the area, it takes such a huge amount of time, to really kind of play the games, to be, also these games are changing every month or 2 months when patches are made and updates, and when the roles or the configuration of the characters that the players can select, and also how they play together, that changes, or what's called the meta, that changes like every 1 to 2 to 3 months. So you kind of have to keep up with the game and kind of and everybody's getting better at it each week. So, but I'm gonna take a little break from it this summer, and we'll see how it goes next fall.
Because that's interesting, because it's unlike, say, traditional sports. The context around what you're playing, the rules don't change. I mean, sometimes they do, but not.
Yeah,
it's not like, oh, now we're playing in a different field. But you have different levels. I'm guessing you have, like you're saying, different configurations that are
the map
can
change usually. Well, in these Counter-Strike style games, like these 5 versus 5 style games, usually the map doesn't change too much. They may release a new map, and that's what Valorant does. Valorant's a little bit more open to changes than CS:GO is, so I could see them releasing a new map in the future to add to the map pool, and that's something that they have to. I think they do that at least every 6 months. I believe they probably release like a new map, and so that's something that players have to just adapt and kind of learn to. But how they change, how the characters, the heroes, the players, what they're playing with, how that changes, like, and also from like how the guns are weighted. So the rate of fire, damage level, the special abilities, how powerful they are, because each character has a certain abilities they can use throughout the game. So what the developer does is that they take a look at the meta to see how, what characters are being selected, how they're being played, how successful they are. Are certain characters more powerful than other ones, and then they try to rebalance the game by adding patches, and then that changes the meta and changes the how the players play the game. And so that's something you have to keep up with. So if you're serious about being good in this kind of competitive area, you have to be playing all the time. You have to keep up with it. So it's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic that's not. I don't think I can find a similarity in traditional sports where that type of thing is changing.
Even though they probably should change baseball to keep it interesting.
Well, I mean, baseball.
How do you feel about that? I do think that
3 minutes of action packed into 3 hours.
Modern sports should be changed and adapted, I think, as for the times. Baseball is something where I watched as a kid, I played as a kid, but it was something where, as watching on TV, I never got into. It was always kind of hard. Even though my friends, I had friends growing up and in college who liked baseball, it was like, I could just never get into it. Like, always love going to baseball game with friends or family. That's always kind of a fun event. But
the experience, but
nice. but then watching on TV, each week, and the amount of games they have, and also the pace and the style of the game, I just can't keep up with. So I'm like, I wish there would be some way they could kind of change and adapt the game to make it a little bit more fresh and
2 balls. You use two balls.
Throw two balls at one time.
Two balls at one time. Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is. And you can only put the glove on your dominant hand. So everybody has to throw with their non-dominant hand. And it'll spice the game up just a little bit. But no, I think you're right, because for me, I've gone to baseball games before, and I'm trying to think. I think I've been at a football game before, in person, and I really feel like, yeah, baseball, it's fun to be there because it's kind of this relaxed. There's no pressure. You're not like, what's going on? You're like, you know what's going on. He's going to throw the ball. He's going to try to hit it. It's so in person, it's a nice kind of activity to do in person. But if you want to watch a football game, you watch it on TV where you can actually see what's going on, because you can't see a thing there. At least my recollection, it's very difficult to understand what is going on when you're in a stadium for a football game, because it's hard to I'm sure the people who aren't as non-sports aware as I are angry, but they're not watching it, because I don't know that anybody watches or listens to this. As
a developer and lover of tech, one thing that I would love to see, I would love to see more technology be introduced into sports.
But technology, because we've got like again, the football thing, right? We've got these cameras that can do amazing things.
Exactly.
And track action.
Exactly. So I would like to take that a step further, and I think.
Oh, you want to get rid of the refs? Just because I want to get rid of the refs about the bad calls. And you're getting rid of the refs. You're watching basketball.
The umpires, the officiating. I think that should be taken out, because
just have. And at some point,
I do believe it will be, because AI recognition. They could be, like I said, for baseball, that's an easy solve. Like you could tell, because they do that on TV now. They can tell exactly
where. They show you the box, right? Like they draw it on the screen. Like, look, the ball's
exactly
outside.
The dot of where that ball came over. So there's really no debate at all. But then there's this human element with the umpires, with the referees, that adds drama to the game, which I understand. But it gets annoying, and also I don't like how it affects the overall game, and it can change the game too. Which I've been watching a lot of basketball. My wife's a big Eagles fan, and I grew up with Philadelphia sports.
I like how you've been watching a lot of basketball, and then we go into Eagles.
No, because I got to do a little backstory.
I'm not going to understand those are different sports,
because I'm very jaded against Philadelphia sports. I had to kind of give a little.
Everybody's jaded against Philadelphia. Philadelphia fans don't even like Philadelphia. That's what being from Philadelphia is like.
I was a big basketball player in high school. Like, I was part of my trip. I was a basketball high school player, and I played that a lot. My dad was a basketball coach. He coached me on and off in different schools. So that was always a big part of my life. And like, we would go down to the Spectrum. We would go watch a lot of the Sixers games. That was a huge thing that we did.
Yeah.
And I started realizing something. It was like, with watching the Sixers as a kid, I just felt like really like abused. I'm just like, they would have like glimmers of hope, and then they would just destroy them.
Dash them. Yeah.
It'd be so brutal. Football too. It's like, I kind of, I don't know. My dad wasn't much of a football fan. We always, watch the big games, the playoffs, stuff like that. So it was like, we watched a little bit, but we weren't really big Eagles fans. I married my wife. Her and her family, huge Eagles fan. Huge, like crazy.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah,
she gets very, very angry and aggressive at the TV when she's watching an Eagles game, way more than I do. So she got me into, and then she started watching the Sixers. I was like, no, I can't do it. Even though I love basketball, I swore it off because I just felt like I was abused as a child. I don't want to go back to that. I don't want to go back to that.
Too frustrating.
Don't want to go back to the abusive relationship. But then they've actually had, I started liking the players, and like with Embiid and Maxey, and like there's a lot of these good Philadelphia basketball players. So I'm like, oh, this is really good. But I'm watching the playoffs, and like I said, they aren't the best team. They're definitely I don't know. They're going to have to definitely need some help to get to the finals and actually win a championship. But just watching the playoffs. Also, the other reason why I stopped watching professional basketball, was because the umpires, the refs,
referees, the officials,
which it's just how they the calls they make, and you can see that they try to, if they make it, because they're human.
If they make a wrong call, they try to make the next call to even things out, and then
they're human too, which. And also based on how they feel about players too, you could tell how feels how the pace of the game is going to. They get, they make certain calls, could change the pace of the game and totally change momentum. And I saw this so many times at the end of the season and in the playoffs, where I'm like, this is crazy. And this is something that should be taken. And the same thing with football too. With football, I think it's actually, they've gotten a little bit better about using replays and the replay system and how the refs officials are actually using that. I think that's gotten better, but now they do have replays and now NBA, which feels like it totally screws it up too, because it feels like the replays take twice as long as they do in football. And it's just like, and also too, it doesn't really change.
And they take a while in football, don't they?
Yes, and it feels like they're taking so long. That's another thing that's changing the pace of basketball. And it's just like they're most of the time too. They just review a bad call, and they just keep their bad call too. So it's like I don't know. Anyway, it's if we can just get the human element out of officiating sports, I think some people would say that yes, that'll take some of the drama out of watching it, which I understand. But at the same time, I actually think it'll make the game better. Because I think players will adapt to that too, and I think then they'll know they can't get away with certain things, and I think the game in the long run will be better, and then we could then start to do some maybe more interesting things. Like I said, introducing technology in different ways too. I think you could possibly with baseball, maybe let's bring out like the cybernetic arms and bats, and like let's get a little crazy with it by bringing more technology.
Roboball. But what you say, so I understand what you're saying. And it makes sense. But then again, we come back to what we were talking about with the esports and how they're changing the game kind of dynamically and changing some things. So you always have to be playing it because it's going to be subtly different.
Yeah. And
you couldn't just drop in and be like, oh, this change is happening. Well, then it occurs to me that that's what we're talking about here too. We're talking about the fact that, oh, I'm going to change as a pitcher. I'm going to change the way that I throw, maybe based on how is the ump calling it today. So there's some variety. It's not that the box is always the same. No, with this umpire, he's giving us a little bit more, or they're taking away a little bit.
See, I'd be more interested in honestly
variance.
I'd be more interested in adding variance by adjusting the rules from year to year, or even I don't even care. You could even do it through mid-season and adjust the rules, and like that would actually be kind of interesting. I just don't like the rules being dependent upon a third party in a sense with the officials. I feel like there's just too much power in a sense, like how they can control the game, which honestly, the officials shouldn't be controlling the game. They should just do what the job is, officiating, like really calling an honest game. But I think since they're humans and whatever,
certain players get leeway, certain other players don't.
And who knows if they're getting paid off, and who knows what what agreements they have on the side. I don't even want to.
That road. Okay. You know what? There's never been algorithms that have been shaded one way or the other. That's for sure. And I think there's tons of research that show that algorithms never have the inherent bias of the people that are designing them ever. And
that brings up a good point. We haven't had a chance to talk about Twitter yet, Tim. So do you think that Elon is going to solve the Twitter problem, going to bring freedom back to Twitter, brings free speech, bring peace to the world by making Twitter open again, and to get rid of the bots and to have less people that work on the algorithm or manage the algorithm?
Well, I'm thinking there's going to be less people. I'm pretty confident. Well, here let's back it up a little bit.
Yeah, which is a good topic to talk about.
You think the sale's actually going to go through?
Oh yeah, I think especially what I'm hearing to do, because they're actually Elon's super smart. Like no matter what you can debate, if you like him or not, and his politics, what he says, I don't really care about that at all. That's not really my thing. But from a business standpoint, and the way he plays the game of business is like you got to admit he is super smart. So what he's done now, because he got so much flack once he got the board to agree to the deal, he's going now to the big shareholders and getting them on board.
Right.
So the big Saudi guy, which I thought
I know this Saudi prince was just like, I don't think this is good for free speech.
Well, that was the amazing thing too. Which who knew that like there was this Saudi prince who was one of the largest shareholders in Twitter, and he was one of the first to freak out. And you have to wonder.
I mean, I think
why
some
is this
people
Saudi
knew that,
prince first of all owning a huge part of Twitter, and then also complaining that it was very weird, and then nobody really talked about the fact like there's somebody in Saudi Arabia, like a Saudi prince, owns a huge company that controls communication in the US, and nobody's questioning that. Like that was a big thing. Yeah. But what Elon's done now, he's going to him, and he actually got his support now.
Right. I saying, he's all on board now, and I don't know why.
Like you pretty much all the shares you have in the company that you pretty much would get paid back for after I would sell the sale, just roll them into the deal. you'll still stay a shareholder, and that basically just lowers the cost that Elon has to put himself or to start bringing
right. So
the money
he's
in.
bringing it private with the large shareholders,
which are
of the
large
public
shareholders,
company. Yeah,
and he's talking them into it, because I think in the end, though, in 5 to 10 years, he's going to bring back public. He's going to
basically said that, hasn't he?
Yeah. So I think he's going to change the company in whatever way he wants to change it, and then he's going to make it public again and get paid off from it. That's the other brilliant thing about this too, because when I read about the debt deal about this too, which is kind of fascinating, which I think he signed up for about 27 billion dollars of debt. Like he was structuring, personally on him in a sense, based on like his shares he owns, his Tesla and everything else. Like,
right.
And so, just in the interest of that debt, he'd have to pay $1 billion a year to just keep up with it, so that he wouldn't basically default. Like he just has to, he's agreeing to that. So just a huge amount of money for that. And I'm just like, wow, that's just a huge, crazy big bet. But now seeing the moves he's making about bringing back the larger shareholders, now it kind of makes sense. And I think his plan too, by the time he really has to really worry about the debt too, I don't think he really worries about paying, or maybe he even would be fine with like running at a loss for a couple of years. He knows he's just going to flip it and just make it go back public.
Yeah.
So it's kind of crazy.
Well, I mean, but probably not surprising.
Well, but barring the politics aside, do you think, because I do think the Twitter bot thing, that's a huge thing. I do think humans managing algorithms, inputting or changing the rules of the algorithms, because we're talking about officiating empires and refros changing the game. I do think there is like, what is your opinion from like human, like programming algorithms to basically to do some moderation? Like I said, you don't want to have communication out there that will, I don't know, incite violence or to do, to break the law in a sense, right? You want to have some rules in place that we've agreed upon, because we do have a constitution. We do, we have free speech, but that there are some things we do have to kind of fall in line with around that. But then how much should humans then be adapting or modifying that on a daily basis in a sense? Because that's a lot of what I think Twitter's employees do, right? Not just the programmers who like work on the system itself, but just the moderation of the system itself.
I mean, so that's like, this is great, because in one way, I was wondering about the Venn diagram of people that are interested in our normal topics and people that were interested in the first 20 minutes of the show when we talked about referees at
but it all comes back together.
So like I imagine that Venn diagram as two circles on different sides of a paper with a huge gap in between, and it's like there's no one here that either listens to this but is also interested in what we're talking about. But this is great, because that's what you're talking about. You're talking about how, like, we go now and we say, okay, the ref can't make a good call, so let's go back to a computer essentially and see what we can see and see what we can determine. Still the replay, the ref's making the call. They're just getting maybe more information, right? But they look at the instant replay, and from that they try to figure out, well, did the person touch the person, or were they grabbing a helmet, or how many times did they, did their foot move with the ball in their hand, or whatever they're trying to figure out. They're still making the call. They're just using technology to give them a better look at it. But you're saying take it a step further. And you're saying, why isn't it just computer vision that is saying, I'm tracking, we've got cameras everywhere, I'm tracking all of those rule type things.
Yeah.
I'm tracking whether the baseball is within the box. I'm tracking whether or not, the person's hand touched the base. We've got time codes and everything. So we know when the ball hit the glove. We know when the hand touched the base. It doesn't require someone to slow-mo, go frame by frame by frame and look at it. We can just tell you. And that's even a step further than what we're doing in sports. I don't think we have AI making any of those decisions right now. I may be wrong, but
there's so many data points that already are being assessed just by us just watching the game on TV. We can actually see what the camera's seeing, and also how the digital overlays and the graphics that they use to show the game and explain the rules. There's already enough data there. And you could even add even more data. Think about for baseball. The baseball is super easy to do. Think about with the ball and the bat, you could definitely chip those to be able to get a lot more data than you could just by just doing like a visual, like a camera view of that, and then trying to analyze that.
Oh, for sure,
Right.
for sure.
Or the plate, or like, and you could basically chip almost everything as part of the field and the objects within the game, and be able to get even more data that they could then use to see, okay, was that when the player swung the bat, did they actually did they nip the ball? Like, did they just kind of
right? Was it
slightly
a foul? Exactly.
Yes.
But we're not doing that. That's what I'm saying. Like, we're not doing that. We can see that could be the next step. But we're not doing that. All we're doing is using technology to bubble it up to a human to maybe better interpret it after fact, because the ump makes the call in real time, and then, it's too close, let's go to the camera and let's let the ump or a set of umps. And that's very analogous in some cases to what we see in that would fall under the moderation concept, or content curation, or whatever you want to call, on different social networks, where it's not so much an algorithm determining it, it's algorithm signaling somebody else. And we have on Facebook, and this is without me trying to get too political and everybody inflamed at me, but you have the fact checkers on Facebook, which are just people telling you whether or not they believe what you've posted is in line with what they believe to be true.
Yeah. So let's just go back to, how much weight should the algorithm have into it? Because the one thing I always loved about Twitter was that it was, when the name implies like a timeline, it always felt like a timeline. Now I know they changed that.
I turned that off, but yeah,
because they want to keep you engaged. So what they'll do is they feel like if you haven't logged on in a couple of days,
we'll show you the best content first.
They'll resurface as a tweet in your feed that you was posted a couple of days ago, just so you can kind of see it to engage in that. But I liked in the past the way it was a pure timeline. If you missed it, you missed it. But it was just like a real time feed of what was said, and then you could, if you want to, depending upon the tools and the way you make. I always love Twitter lists, because I could make Twitter lists to try to organize who I follow, and then be able to kind of follow up with them again. So if I wanted to, let's say if I wanted to follow 5 people and know everything that they said, I can make a list of 5 people. I could go back to that list of previously. I could scroll through all their tweets then over the past week, and I could get caught up if I wanted to do that. Right. So there was tools in place.
Unless those people that delete their tweets.
That's true. Which
no, but seriously, they're like people that will delete them like after they only have a week's worth going, and that there's automatic services that will. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, there's I think there's services out there that do it, and I see some more.
So they do it just to get like
people
to get that initial hit off of. And
I don't know what their reasoning is, other than the fact I think in their mind it's like this. I'm just saying things, and I want them to be
ephemeral, just kind of they just want to say it and let it go away.
Right. I don't want a record of it. I just want to talk and then not be recorded, essentially. And I can get that vibe. Being someone who's always been a remote worker, to me, communication being stored and preserved for all time in your email makes a lot of sense, because then I can always reference it and being like, oh, what was it that we had agreed upon? And I can find it.
I could be kind of for that if you want to do it'd be a weird thing, and there'd be ways around it. But let's say if you had like your public feed, and that was just if you posted there, that went into the main public feed, and it was your tweet was already there. But then if you wanted to kind of maintain your personal, like all your tweets in your own profile, and then if you want to have a setting saying, okay, after a week, delete all my tweets, or delete the tweets I made in the previous week, so that somebody goes to your profile and they want to see what you posted, they wouldn't have to look as much. Then I'd be fine with that.
But that notion is also, I think, isn't that kind of what I don't do enough of this stuff. Sorry. Like Facebook has stories, Instagram has Reels. Is it? No, but I think it's stories, and Twitter had something like that, where it's something that's only around for 24 hours and then it goes away. I think, and you can't even get to it.
That was an Instagram, which I like I said, you also use. I haven't used Facebook.
Right, Facebook now has stories.
I try to avoid it. That. Like, unless a family member or an old friend posts something or message. No, the only time I get on Facebook now, if I get an annoying email by Facebook saying this person has sent you a personal message, and I hate that Facebook has a stupid Messenger app now where I can't, like, because I'm primarily, when I go on Facebook, if I have to, I'll open it up on my phone in my Brave browser to protect my privacy, and I like how I can log in and won't track me.
Doesn't track you. It just gives you, it earns you cryptocurrency though, if I'm not mistaken.
It does.
Yes, it does.
About $20. $20. Well, actually, probably go down more because the crypto market's going down. But anyway,
we could talk about that.
Yeah, we could. Oh, no problem. But Facebook then says, oh, if you want to see this message, you have to then download the Messenger app. And I'm like, no way, I'm not downloading this Messenger app to get this. So I have to wait till I get on my computer, because then I could actually see the message if I need to. But
right, because you can go
annoying.
to the Messenger app in the web. Yeah, the web version of it. Yeah.
Yeah, because I totally got off that, because you could, if you just are just aware of and looking for it, if I just go on Facebook for just a minute, I'll start seeing ads of websites, even though I'm using the Brave browser primarily, and I'm trying to keep track of what I'm searching for, just based probably my IP address. I don't know, but Facebook still knows about you and recent information about you.
Oh yeah,
and I'll start seeing ads,
all that kind of fun stuff.
And I'm like, this is crazy. Like, this is the reason I got off of it, because it just feels icky. It just feels like I don't know,
they're all tracking you, Mark. They're all tracking you.
But that's the other, going back to Twitter, I kind of felt like the Twitter, even though there's definitely some of that there, but it just felt like it wasn't.
It's definitely less of it, because I don't think they're doing contextual ads in the feed. I
think their ads are super bad. We're like,
they're terrible ads.
Which honestly, I don't mind that, because it actually makes me feel good. Like, feel like they're not
terrible ads, because I'm like, this isn't even relevant to me. You have no idea who I am. I like that.
The only thing about ad moderation I don't mind is, like, if you just say, I don't like this ad.
Right.
And I do like that part, because I do use on YouTube, which I turn off the history, because I find that actually the algorithm works best if you turn off the YouTube history, and I pretty much just follow my subscriptions.
Because if you have the history on, then they start like trying to push stuff on you they think you like, and they get so screwed up what
they do is they still will suggest occasionally, if I'm looking at their main feed that's primarily based off of my subscriptions, but then they occasionally pop in other videos that say, oh, you may like this. But then if I say I don't like this, then it actually seems to have gotten better. It's just like turning off the history and then actually just saying, oh no, I don't like this video, don't suggest it to me. The algorithm seems to be getting better. So I don't know, but it feels like the less things,
because it's like, just because one day I was looking for how to get rid of toe fungus, and I ran across a YouTube video with a doctor that's telling you, no, this is a. No, I'm not.
It's like, wow, you're being like really public here now.
Yeah, no, this is what we would call an example, Mark.
I think that'd be a great show title. I was on YouTube. I was looking up toe fungus videos.
No, it's not even that. It's like you're looking up, how to get rid of my toe fungus, right? And I'm like clicking around, and there's a doctor, and ad, and then there's a video in there in that blog post where he talks through whatever he's putting in the blog post, and now YouTube's like, this guy wants to know more about toe fungus. I can show you all types of different fungi, and it's like that's I'm not super impressed by we think you'll like this algorithm, whether it's YouTube or Netflix or whatever.
So that's the one thing I always liked about Twitter, and that's the reason why I'm still on Twitter. Right. Even though I've tried to avoid social networks as much as I can. I haven't deleted my accounts. I haven't gone to that extent like some people have. I still have them. I just don't check them. And then in case, because I do like the fact that I do have friends that I've made connections with. So if I ever need to message them and I don't have their phone number, or they need to message me, it is a nice communication tool, and I do like having that as a thing that's occasionally there. But just from a networking, or just even with Twitter too, the way I use Twitter, me, I just like to post some crazy comments here and there. Like if I'm thinking about something that's kind of has a crazy thing to it, then I'm just like, yeah, I'll just post just for fun, because it's entertaining to me. I'm not sure, and people just may laugh at it, or they may just, maybe they'll find it entertaining like I do, but I don't really care. I don't really care if even people don't even like or don't like my post or anything like that. I kind of care if I start posting stuff, they start unfollowing me, because if I'd be obnoxious.
Oh boy, that. Not the unfollowers.
But I like it just feels good. Just feels like, yeah, it's just a nice little outlet there. So I like Musk says, I do like the kind of the free speech aspect of it, where it's kind of like, yeah, people just go on there, they could say what they want, and then it's up to everybody's has the freedom then to follow them or not, right? Because the one thing about Twitter too, they used to have like the public feed that was like everything, which I think you can get from an API standpoint. You can get that, right?
You can get a sample feed. You can't get that fire hose. That's ridiculous.
But like that, I remember starting using Twitter back then when that was still a thing. You can
Right.
see what
Yeah,
everyone
you
is
just go to
posting
twitter.com
really
and
super
be like,
early
this
on.
is everything.
So but normal people, they don't have to see that now. So that's not the issue. So it's really up to everybody they could choose who to follow, and they could know the type of tweets that they're seeing. They have control over that. Everybody has kind of personal responsibility and personal control over the information that they're seeing. So I appreciate that. I want to kind of see that continue, but I do understand also people's reservations of like, oh, well, if you're just going to get them people that are just going to get on Twitter, like the crazy orange haired man who's going to get back on Twitter and start saying some crazy things and start rallying people, and then we're going to start having a revolution, right?
No idea what you're talking
So
about.
I can understand people having concerns about that, but at the same time, though, I think, but there is still a personal responsibility of this. Like, everybody kind of has choice, whether or not they follow that person or not, or whether or not, whether or not they want to be, even because, like I said, if you don't like what the person tweets, you don't have to follow them, right?
That's the idea. So I just sent you a link through. I don't know if you can even see it. But what is it? TwitterJoinDate.com. How long have you been on Twitter?
I don't know.
What's
I guess like here, I could look for it here. I'll put my name in here, right?
Yeah. Because my user ID is in just the six figures.
2007.
There you go. 2007.
Yeah.
What's the date? I'm
November
2007.
November 27th.
Tuesday, January 16th, 2007.
Oh.
So back when there were
that was
still
so long ago.
usernames to get.
And I can't even remember what the reason why, how you even found it. I don't know. Maybe it was one of those startup. That was back in that was back when that was back when I was starting to think about doing a startup. So I graduated in 2000 and I worked I was jumping between companies between 2000 2010 after graduating, and towards 2010, that's where I was starting to think about doing my own thing and started to think about the startup world. So that's probably how I found Twitter, starting to follow the TechCrunch and these startup websites.
Yeah, I forget even, did we know each other back in 2017?
No, I think I met you on Twitter.
Yeah, no, wait, no, 2017. Is that what I said? Was it 2017?
No, it was 20. No, I said 2007. That's
2007. Yeah. What is it? 7. Yeah, no, we wouldn't have yet, I don't think.
No,
anyway. Let's see what we can do. I want to circle back to two things. One is related to Twitter and your the conflict that you had in your esports team with theater. I feel like you really would identify with that student, because not only are you an esports coach, but you're also an award-winning theater actor. So says your Twitter profile.
No. Like I said, I
did
a lot in high school,
understand
Tim.
that tension between esports and having
to
be.
I was very I go the name. What's that? Prophylactic.
I don't know.
I was gonna say prophylactic, and that's not the right word to say.
I don't believe it is.
There's this word. Oh man, it's escaping right now. But I was very out. I was doing a lot in high school.
You were doing a lot.
Yes, I was participating in lots. Yes, I was in the theater
What
program.
were you looking for?
I was in the I don't know. It's escaping right now. I cannot look at you and talk at the same time. That's the problem.
Let me mute my video because we can only do 2 of those things apparently.
So yeah, in high school I was doing a lot. I was in the high school program. I was in sports and or the theater program.
Did you ever have to miss a game for theater?
That's interesting. Oh, I missed practices.
Okay.
There was times that came up, or but then usually the coach was like, because he's didn't want to cause conflict in the school, kind of had to pick and choose of what you usually shows I never had a conflict about, because usually the games I never did a game, because the other thing too, this match, it was scheduled on a Saturday.
Oh, that's tough.
So that was tough. Or usually shows were always like a weekend thing, maybe a Friday or Saturday, and then sports were like a Monday through Thursday.
Right, they
usually
were
games like after school. So I didn't really playing basketball. I didn't have too many, unless there was like a tournament going on that we had to actually go someplace that was like a weekend tournament. But then didn't really conflict too much. But yeah, I didn't mind it. Like I said, it was more about, I knew we would be one man down. It was going to be a tough match, and he was a very difficult asset to lose for the team. But I understood. You gotta follow your passions, Tim.
Is that the truth? Is that what it is? Maybe that's the secret. Is that what I've been? Anyway. So there's that. So I just wanted to circle back on that and just make sure that we knew that you could definitely put yourself in his shoes in this context. One would think. Also, just as a side note, I will not be here next Friday, so we're gonna have to skip next Dev Friday.
All right.
So I just have a conflict. Figure I'd just mention it here because all the listeners then will know they don't have to tune in. Um, Especially since I just released last show like minutes before this show went online. But no, one other thing that happened that I thought was interesting, at least I've been puzzling over this week. For me, got a call. An SSL cert on a project that I used to work on had expired, and we had to
hate
update
that.
the SS. Yeah, right. We had to update the SSL certs, and then if you know how you put an SSL cert on a load balancer, you've got the certs,
Oh.
you've got the bundle, and then you
Yeah.
have the private key. And the private key is generated, and then the cert comes from the public key, not the private key, right? I have the private key on what was my old dev system before I replaced it with my desktop. And it's just sitting across the room. I had copied all that to my NAS. And I went to look for it there, and it turns out it hadn't copied those files. I'm not quite sure what permissions were missed, but obviously I have to go back and slurp up the files in a different way. So I actually have them on the NAS, which only I should have access to, so it should still feel relatively secure. But it made me think I should take things like this, and I've done it before, like my private key, and probably put it on an encrypted volume on a USB key that I keep on my keychain or something like that. So these things that, because you lose the private key, you're done.
No, that's true. I like the idea too. I just started it, because I really like a nice metal USB key.
Yeah,
it
yeah.
feels really good. That feels like it's not going to get beat up by the other keys, and it feels like really good, high quality. So I have a couple of USB keys now. I've been using going back and forth between schools. So I do have my small laptop I take occasionally, but if I'm moving files back and forth between school, I just have these nice USB 3 keys. But I always worried about too. I thought the same thing. Like if I start putting valuable information like private keys. Or even if I start storing crypto, or if I want to on it,
Ooh.
have like
Yeah.
a cold storage in my pocket, in a sense. But it feels a weird just having that be the sole solution or the sole place I'm going to be storing that private information. Where I don't mind it being a backup or being like one place,
Right, just
than
so it's
being
there.
like
Though. I'm just saying, so it's accessible, and you're like,
It's
oh,
accessible,
I need my SSH key. I have it here on the USB key, which then hopefully, like I said, is encrypted. And that made me look around, and there's a couple out there. Now, if you've seen the YubiKeys, right?
Sounds familiar.
Like I have one on my keychain right now. YubiKey is a 2FA device, right?
Yep.
You plug it in. It has a key. Depending on how you have it set up with different services, it'll auth, and you'll be like, yep, it must be him because we've set up the auth with this device. So a hardware-based token. In fact, I think the newer YubiKeys can actually do one-time passwords and things like that, where as long as you give them the one-time password seed, you can press the button on the YubiKey and it will provide, I think it acts like it's keyboard input, right? And so if you're at the site, it's just to press the button on the YubiKey and it says, oh, here's the OTP for this site. So that's like lots of cool uses there. I wish, and that's what I was poking around, because I like YubiKey. I've used them in the past. I have one. I need to get a new one with USB-C because there's a USB-A that's in my key. So if I want to use it on any of my newer systems that only have USB-C, it's like I got to use one of those little USB-C converter things. I just rather have a smaller one that's built for that size. But they don't support, to my knowledge, I've poked around, they don't support me putting information like arbitrary data on there. I would love to put arbitrary data on there and then it only be unlocked with some type of biometrics. And they do have a biometric key. It's a little bit more expensive, but they have a biometric key, which would be totally cool if you could just throw, say, arbitrary keys on it. But from what I can tell, the only thing they let you store is actual keys that are used for 2FA. So whatever, because there's a bunch of different protocols for 2FA. I think there's the FIDO and something I think that starts with a U, I think. So those type of keys you can, through whatever API this device gives you, you can store, but it's not like a normal flash drive. I think the memory behind it is some EEPROM or something like that. So it's definitely not designed to be written to multiple times or many times. It's more like, all right, let's write the data there and let's do the calculations on it that we need to for security, for logins and things like that. But that just struck me as that'd be really cool if I could have kind of encrypted biometric storage that if I needed, I could just plug it into a computer and be like, oh, there's the file. Let me grab it. It's been unlocked with my fingerprint. And then I'll also use that same device as that 2FA, because I really do like using the YubiKey as my 2FA for GitHub and for other online accounts.
That would actually be pretty cool. Like if it was built into the USB itself. So you plug in the USB and it had like a fingerprint reader in it. So just like you plug it in, and then maybe it would detect it automatically when you plugged it in because your thumb would be on it. Let's say your thumb wasn't on it. And then before it actually, you could open up the drive or see the files, it would request saying, okay, it needs to be authenticated. You basically put your thumb on it, and then it's all built in the same device. That'd be good.
And it feels like they're close. I didn't dig in deeply to their biometric one. I don't think that's any different in terms of what API it provides, but that's basically it. It's a fingerprint reader. That it won't even let you do the 2FA unless it's your fingerprint.
As long as they're not taking that fingerprint and then sending it someplace when you're actually doing the setup and the install, which I do worry about with these security companies. Like when you're doing when you're
more than unlocking it, it's actually
when you're doing the initial scan, when it has to learn about your fingerprint, you have to basically press it like 20 times in different positions to basically learn the texture of your finger, and then they get the information that they need from it. What are they doing with that information? Where is it going? Is it just truly staying just on your computer, like how I
believe for the biometric is staying on the device.
The marketing of it says, but because I worry about this because with even with the Surface Go, because the Surface Go has like a fingerprint reader like in the power button, which is pretty cool. Yeah, it's nice. And or even with your phones or Android or iOS phones, when you do like your unlock, is it truly just staying on the device? Yes, I guess you have to put some faith in that, but somebody could, if they're designing, let's say, software like a USB key, that they would have to you have to scan your fingerprint or your thumbprint to be able to unlock it. Well, there's going to be some app that's going to have to store that information. Is it sending it someplace else? That's the only thing I'd be worried about.
Yeah, I think in this case it's not, because I think it's all on the device. But what you're saying for like your Surface Go, totally, that's running on software somewhere, and especially if it's somehow you can log into your other Surface Go and never have set up fingerprint, because it matches your account. You just put in your name and then swipe, and it's like, oh yeah, that's Mark. We know. It's like, how do you know? Well, because we sent your bio data to the cloud somewhere. But there's a couple different competitors to YubiKey, and some of them have that. So I'm wondering if I need to branch out from YubiKey and get something that's both a 2FA device and secured storage for things like keys, because it's like, yeah, this was a case where I know I have the key, I can get to the key, I just had to boot up the laptop. It hadn't been boot up for probably 6 months, so of course it's a Linux box, so of course it went through all the file system checks, and then finally get it up, and for some reason, I don't know, I haven't touched it for a while, for some reason it wasn't connecting to my network, so I had to actually use a USB key to transfer the key to a computer that I was on, so I could set up the certs. It's like, that'd be cool if that stuff I could just keep encrypted on a USB that I carry in my pocket, and like you said, and maybe another one that I carry, keep in a safe here at the house someplace, should that ever go missing.
Initially brought up and this all came about because of installing or having to reissue an SSL cert on a server.
Yeah.
Which, managing servers, that was always the most annoying thing to me, was dealing with SSL certs with servers. Especially when I would do like virtual servers on Google Cloud. Or I did this exact scenario you talked about, like set up a load balancer. You have to install this SSL cert on that, so it can then because setting up the load balancer and then setting up the actual VMs that it would use, that was easy. I was almost straightforward. But then the SSL process of generating the key, certifying where setting it up on the server, it was a very manual process. Even if Google Cloud has some nice tools, I know Amazon has similar tools too for setting that up on the server or for the load balancer. But it always felt like a very tedious, laborious thing. Do you feel that's just part of the design of it, that it has to be that way because it is it's such a key point for security? Because if if the script, the SSL cert just verifies that the server belongs to somebody, right? So who it belongs to? Who belongs to?
It's because however much data you give it. If the cert fails,
the HTTP is still there at the HTTPS. So there's still the 256 128. I'm not sure the bit connection.
But the encryption's there. Connected. It just doesn't match the domain.
The validation of who owns that connection. that's what needs to be served. So that's what do you think it's designed to be very tedious and laborious? Because it does feel like it feels like something about the process that could be. I know Let's Encrypt does
that way though,
because I know that Let's Encrypt has like I'm not sure what the name of the program does, has like an automatic way you could do if you set up your server using Let's Encrypt. There's a process that do like a daemon that runs. If it does expire, it'll then automatically connect to their server.
Might say daemon,
yes. Daemon. Okay, let's not sidetrack into that. That would be interesting.
No, I give a talk on PHP daemons, and that's how I say it. And I made the mistake. This is okay. So aspiring speakers, here's some tips. All right. We'll slice this up as a chapter next time I actually do chapters. So aspiring speakers, I asked the group. I'm like, show of hands, daemon or daemon, which do you prefer? And more people prefer daemon than daemon. So in my mind, I gave the whole talk saying daemon because I was like, man, the reviews I got. There were people. There are people that are like, it's not daemon, it's demon. It's like, dude, but I believe you. That's what I said when I told. I just changed it to help the audience not think that it was strange. And they're like, he said it wrong the whole time. Well, were you not there for the part where I asked everybody and tried to say it the way that the crowd was more familiar? I was like, that's it. I'm never asking that question again.
I totally get to understand the confusion between GIF or GIF.
Oh, GIF.
I understand. Because I understand that because
one's peanut butter, the other is an image exchange format. Yeah.
Stop it. I understand that just based on something, but the way that demon and daemon are spelled, it's just spelled completely different. So how they should be pronounced is
there are other English words that are spelled completely different and pronounced the same.
Oh, that's probably true. But it just daemon, it just feels when you say it, actually it makes sense of how it's pronounced based on how it's spelled. That's what I'm saying.
Maybe. Oh so anyway,
because if you say PHP demons, you know what I'm going to think? I'm going to think, wow, yes, I had some PHP demons in the past.
That's how I started to talk.
I had to exercise them. I had to get my life right because all the demons I had in my past when it came to PHP. That's what it makes me think of.
That is how I start the talk. We're going to talk about PHP demons, and no, I don't mean the code that I used to write and how it haunts me at night. That's a different talk.
Yeah,
I'm going to talk about long-running processes and things, that never end.
Okay,
which again is the thing that haunts me.
I love how you threw that because when you said that, I was like, what? That really threw me off. I was like, no, that's crazy.
What was crazy?
No, because you said PHP demons, and I was like,
PHP
what?
demons, yeah, PHP demons, yep. So anyway, but what you were saying is yes, Let's Encrypt has some mechanisms in an API to get to reissue the cert and get what you need. I didn't find it too difficult, other than the annoyance that it will expire in a year and you'll have to do the process again.
Maybe
but it was really just for Amazon's load balancer. It was like pull up the cert that is associated with the load balance from the EC2 instances and drop in the new bundle, the new cert, and then the new key. But here's the thing, though. I don't know if you were doing this differently. If I'm not mistaken, I don't think I'm mistaken, we don't care behind the load balancer for this particular setup. Mm-hmm. So from load balancer to EC2 is not SSL.
Okay, yeah, that's correct. Exactly the way I would do it, yeah.
Okay.
Why?
Because you could if you were concerned about the machine-to-machine encryption, and in fact, I don't remember how it works. It may actually be SSL. We just do it without the cert, or I forget how it works. But it's like I didn't have to do that because I know that's complexity. If you have to relay the cert downstream to the EC2 instance, and the EC2 instance respond, and it kind of goes through the load balancer, I remember looking at that and just being thoroughly confused by what would have to happen. But this is much more simple.
And when I say it's annoying to use, I could say like if I was a web administrator, and that's something that I've never tried to be, because usually especially for a front end developer, when you have to do web administration, it's usually because you're forced to because of, let's say, you're trying to accomplish something, or honestly you're just trying to see if it'll work. But if I was a web administrator and this was a part of my job that I was doing on a weekly basis, where I was having to have like a series of servers and kind of having a good process, a good system with doing SSL certs, I don't think I probably would feel the same way. But it is something, you're right, it expires in a year, and it feels like it's an annoyance. I feel like, oh my gosh, I gotta relearn this all over again because I totally forget how to do this. I didn't really document that well the first time.
Oh, exactly. Every time it's like, what was the thing that I needed
so
to do again?
That's why it feels like so tedious and so annoying. So I'm like,
Well, what did we learn this week, Mark?
We learned that we should never let our SSL certs expire, or else we will get some PHP demons that will haunt us at night.
I like it. I like this. We should do this at the end of the show. We should do like, what did you learn today, Tim? I don't know. I learned that Mark doesn't like watching sports when the teams involved come from Philadelphia.
Oh, I know. I don't know. And I get all bent out of shape and trigger. You start talking about sports. That's probably wasn't a good thing.
It's yeah. Maybe that's the one thing we learned. Don't talk about sports with Mark.
Sports, yeah.
Where half of the technical podcast will be about sports, and that's just confusing to the listeners. All right. The other thing we learned is I won't be here next week, so we won't be here next week, but hopefully the week after.
And hopefully that'll give me some time now that class are with. I can actually do some development. So when you eventually do come back, I'll be able to have some things to talk about too. So
wait, what's the class?
No, I'm done.
The C++ stuff, right? Is that what we're talking about?
Yes. No, I'm talking about the course I teach.
So you'll be done with that.
Yeah,
so
college is done now. So I'm just doing some grading and then on some projects.
That's the worst, am I right? Can't you just get AI to do grading?
Oh, don't worry, Tim. I automate as much as I can.
Just feed it through and have it assign a grade. Right. Is that how it works?
That's right.
Okay. Well, 2 weeks we'll be back. We'll see how Mark's grading went, and we'll see how much more he's learned about C++.
That's true.